Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Point Break. I'm Antara. India is today in middle of its largest digital infrastructure build out yet. Installed data center capacity has gone from 375 megawatt in 2020 to approximately 1575 megawatt today as we speak, which is more than fourfold in 5 years. Hyderabad alone has around, I believe, 151 megawatt operational with a development pipeline approaching 2 gigawatts. Microsoft, on the other hand, has launched its fourth Indian data center region there. In Visakhapatnam, Google and Adani are building a $15 billion AI hub, a gigawatt-scale data center with energy and infrastructure and intentional connectivity. Now, these facilities are becoming what some are calling the factories of the AI economy. They essentially determine where models are trained, who controls computing capacity, and which countries can, essentially go about it. Now, meanwhile, Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma has entered the debate. He has essentially warned that India must not become a victim of anti-AI or anti-data center protests similar to those emerging in the West. Now, that, I believe, captures the tension perfectly. If India slows down while others accelerate, it may lose its window to becoming a major AI power. But access to land, access to electricity, and access to water cannot come without transparency and accountability to local communities. And that, I believe, is the great Indian data center debate. And that is the conversation that we are having today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Antara. This is Point Break. Let's get right into it. My two guests today are both building Indian infrastructure for the AI era, but from two different positions. Manoj Dhanda is the founder and CEO of UTHO, which is India's sovereign cloud infrastructure platform, built from the ground up using Indian-owned infrastructure across multiple data center. Starting as micro-host in 2010 with, I believe, rupees 5,000 and a vision that Bharat should own its cloud, Manoj built UTHO into a platform which is trusted by 51,000 plus businesses running 70% of India's cloud telephony and serving enterprises like Jindal Steel and APL Apollo at a fraction of hyperscaler cost. He is, in fact, the person in this room who has actually built Indian cloud infrastructure from scratch. Manoj, it's really good to have you on Point Break. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure.
And my second guest today is Vishnu Subramanian, who is the founder of Jarvis Labs. He is essentially, he's somebody who has come on Point Break before. We have had a conversation previous to this as well. Jarvis Labs, ladies and gentlemen, is a bootstrap GPU cloud platform built out of Coimbatore that provides compute infrastructure for AI researchers and companies, including big names like Zoho and Upgrad. He built it without venture capital from a tier 2 city at a time when the entire world was scrambling for NVIDIA GPU. So Vishnu, it's really good to have you back here.
Hey, great. Now we are part of E2E Networks. Let me just add that.
All right, absolutely.
We're not anymore bootstrapped.
Viewers. Yeah, thank you for that, Vishnu. All right, here's where I want to begin. Both of you are building Indian cloud and compute infrastructure in a market which is, dominated by AWS and Google and now billion-dollar hyperscale projects. From where you sit, does India's data center boom actually, I would say, create AI sovereignty, or does hosting foreign-owned infrastructure just create, more expensive dependency? Manoj, if you want to take this first.
So it only depends. If you talk about the sovereignty, it's not just where our data is hosted. Nowadays, the people are using the GPUs, even they are from the outside India, and now they're looking the capacity in India. If you talk about sovereignty, it's not about only the data center locations. It's about who actually own that stack, and that platform stack, where exactly that specific company is registered, what country laws apply on that specific organizations. So if let's say any hyperscalers, which is already coming in India, putting their own data center space, Google also announced a large data center capacity. So although the data center and data will be in India, but we can't say it is completely sovereign, because the switch scale it will be still in US. Any US act, according to the US Act, US government can ask any data of any Indian organization from them. It's the rule. So we call it if everything of specific organizations, not only just data centers, but software stack, that company, and there should be no foreign licensing fees or any tools used in that specific organizations can called complete sovereign cloud. I believe the way we are growing, the Indian economy is growing in the AI. I believe we are the people who actually able to give one of kind of beta kind of users testing to any platforms like OpenAI or let's say other platforms. So when the AI utilization is going to be happen in the real use cases, the challenge and the race will be the per rupees of the compute cost.
Okay.
And that's why I believe the people are now coming in India, putting their own data centers. Because if you look at outside of the India, people now start denying for the data center space. But I think India has the opportunity to have on sovereign cloud here, also bring these hyperscalers, because we have the opportunity with the green power. We have the great land here. We can build the solar power, which is actually very critical for the GPU infrastructure,
All
which
right.
is always the power hungry infrastructure.
All right. Vishnu, your perspective on this?
I agree with what Manoj is saying. Hyperscalers building their own infrastructure in India has got nothing to do with sovereignty.
Okay.
Sovereignty is where we learn how to do things and we control things in place. So today we are building different parts in the stack. For example, at Jarvis Labs, we build the orchestration layer, which is on top of the infra layer, right? But someone still has to build the infra layer. For example, when we were setting up our own servers, for the optical fiber that connects between two servers, we have to get it imported from foreign. And let's say when there is a war kind of scenario, the shipments gets delayed, and a lot of these challenges are in. So we have to look at sovereignty at multiple stacks.
Okay.
What hyperscalers are doing is something different. Maybe it will help us in our economy. They are taking their own business, but I don't think it has got anything to do with sovereignty.
All right. I also want to talk about this, Manoj and Vishnu. The argument for data centers as strategic infrastructure is pretty straightforward. Countries without sufficient domestic compute remain dependent on infrastructure which is controlled elsewhere, right? Training frontier AI models, running sovereign AI platforms, keeping sensitive data within national borders, all of it requires physical infrastructure in the right place. Now, India's installed capacity has grown fourfold, right? But is it the right kind of capacity? And also, is it growing fast enough? Vishnu, the question is to you here. You run a GPU cloud platform for AI researchers. How much domestic compute capacity does India actually need to be genuinely competitive, I would say, in AI? And also, are we anywhere near that?
So the world does not work that way, right? Like for example, Indian researchers happily use compute from US and any market which is available. So at India, we should not be looking at the compute that we just need to build for India, which may not be economically feasible. For example, let's say, and GPUs are very capital intensive. Let's say we want to buy 100,000 GPUs, but the demand for 100,000 GPUs is not present today in India. That will probably increase exponentially over the coming years. That's a hope. But again, there is different time zone difference. For example, the utilization in India, let's say all the voice models are using heavily the infra. That is usually during the daytime. The night times are idle. So it's very essential that we work for the global, where we are able to capture different markets. That's where all of this becomes economically feasible. To your question, are we growing fast? The answer is yes. When we started, there were not many players who are having GPUs in place in India. But now there are many companies which have invested in GPUs. That's a huge capex, right? India is still a growing country, and we are making aggressive bets. Should we make more aggressive bets? Yes, the answer is yes. But for that, we cannot just target India as our consumer base. We have to build it for the internet.
All right. But Vishnu, what exactly is India's AI strategy if it doesn't really control the infrastructure AI runs on?
So let's be practical, right? It's not practical for us to say we will build an accelerator. There's only
Okay.
one company in the world which does that today.
Mhm.
Except that company, no one else does it at that scale. There are small players which does, but that's very focused.
Okay.
I'm taking an example of an optical fiber. To build an optical fiber which looks like a simple wire, it's complicated. So we have to have, I think government is doing the right thing. They are having deep tech funds. A lot of startups have to come into play, and they have to build a lot of these little components. Building an accelerator probably could be a 10-year, 20-year long journey, not something that we could achieve in a day or two. So I think we're talking the right thing, sovereignty. Yes, we have to build a lot of things, but we also have to be realistic in our goals. Otherwise, what will happen is we'll get disappointed. We will demoralize ourselves after a year or two. I think we're making a lot of progress in the software side of things, and the hardware thing also we are making progress. But let's be realistic, the hardware progress usually takes longer than the software progress.
Certainly. Certainly. Thank you for that, Vishnu. Manoj, my second question is to you. Should data centers be, treated as strategic infrastructure comparable to, power, telecommunications, and ports? Because I would say that's a policy question with significant consequences, and it changes how, government essentially regulates, incentivizes, and protects this particular sector. So where do you land on that?
Absolutely. I think India is the right fit for everyone now who want to build data centers, especially for the GPUs who need high bandwidth. So we already have the licenses for the telecoms, for the power, for the land. I believe the compute is the fourth things, which when everything's building on the AI, so compute is other fourth asset, which I believe soon will be licensed or somehow, regulated in India. So three already is there. So one, as I stated earlier, the power is the main thing for when we're building AI infrastructure, which is very, very crucial. That's why if you talk outside India's data centers, they are already building. What we are already having around 1,500 or 2,000 megawatt data centers. This is actually in outside India, they are building almost every quarter or every 6 months, the same capacity. But what I understand, if we look at the order size which coming from the outside India and they want to host their GPU cluster in India only. So I believe in next 3 to 4 years, India will have almost 7 to 8 times of the data center capacity.
Okay.
So let's say we can call it 7 to 10 gigawatt, right? So I think this is the right land for everyone who want to build. And that's why people are coming.
Got it. Thank you for your perspective, Manoj. And Vishnu, I want to sort of build a little from your previous answer, and I completely understand and agree with your point of being having realistic visions here. At the same time, Vishnu, what does India risk, if it, say, builds capacity slower or more slowly than the US or China and the Gulf states? Because, the Gulf is moving extraordinarily fast right now, right? Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and they are competing for the same hyperscaler investment that India wants.
See, from my personal point of view, I am not more excited about getting the hyperscaler investment.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
I'm more interested in why India is not building a hyperscaler. We should be having a cloud platform. We should be having, so AI opened up the cloud market. It's a greenfield market, it's like 3 or 4 years old. We had an excuse why we did not have an AWS 20 years back, but now we don't have an excuse, right? So it's okay. It's good in a way. AWS invests, GCP invests, Azure invests in India. That's just a small part of the story. What I'm more interested is we building a hyperscaler. If we don't have that for the next generation, then I think we should not be forgiven. Our generation should not be forgiven for that.
All right. Thank you for that very, very candid answer, I would say, Vishnu. Manoj, my next question here is to you. But before that, much of India's expansion is being led by Google, Microsoft, and globally operated data center companies. The infrastructure is physically in India, but the cloud platforms and the chips and the AI system, the ownership remains foreign. Now, there is a difference between data localization and infrastructure sovereignty and technological sovereignty. India may be achieving the first without necessarily achieving the second or third. So I'm essentially circling back to that topic here. Manoj, you built UTHO specifically because you believe India needed its own cloud, right? Not just host other people's infrastructure. Does hosting foreign-owned hyperscale data center make India more sovereign or just more dependent on foreign platforms with better latency?
Uh, Not exactly.
Okay.
I truly agree with Vishnu's point. We should have India's own hyperscaler here. And I believe we are working with the same vision. That's why I was smiling. So, as he stated, like from last 20 years, we are using these hyperscalers, right? But now, if you talk about the GPU factories or the AI infrastructure, we call it neo cloud, and people are start adopting it. People are not asking any question that we need to go for hyperscalers. What are the comparison points? Because if you talk about GPU infrastructure, it's just apple to apple comparison. You will get the same performance everywhere because the GPU is provided by NVIDIA or the AMD. So same models will perform in the same way. So I think this is the right time, right opportunity. We will not need to depend now on the hyperscalers. Definitely, they want to build the capacity here because of the shortage of the water or the power or the land outside India. So they want to utilize or leverage Indian land for that, right? For that matter, I believe this is the right opportunity for each cloud provider here to build a kind of orchestration layer here, which is not dependent on any other countries. And I believe market is pretty open now. The CIOs want to explore Indian providers. So I think opportunity for next 3 years to actually build AI factory here. You are rightly said that we are already dependent on the chip or on the hardware side from the foreign providers or the foreign suppliers. But the way now we are getting GPU demand, I think in next 3 years, if we build the infrastructure here, if tomorrow anything goes wrong with the chipset or the delivery or the specific pipelines, we will have the huge infrastructure which actually able to serve Indian demand. So let's say nowadays we are getting requirement for the US orders for heavily. If we serve 3 years to them, and if after even 3 years that infrastructure we want to utilize for our Indian economy, I think that would be a game changer for us.
All right.
We can utilize the same infrastructure.
Okay. Vishnu, what parts of data center stack must India actually control domestically? Because the stack is deep. Land, power, cooling, servers, networking, GPUs, the software layer, the cloud platform. Where is the line between what India needs to own and what it can, safely import or license?
So we live in a globalized world, right? We have to respect each other and we have to understand the fact that not even a large country like India cannot build everything. The challenge that we have today is the balance of power. Our imports are too high than our exports.
Yes.
So what we need to aspire is not to go to a level where we are completely building everything. But in a table, if someone says that I'll not give you access to this, they should realize that they will also not get access to a lot of things from us. It should be equal partners. For us to become equal partners, we have to build at least some critical stack in the entire space. Right? That is more realistic. For example, today, the software we have built the orchestrator from scratch. There are 3 or 4 people who have done that in the entire world. This allows us to take infra from anywhere in the world, spin up, put our software on top of that and serve it. That's one advantage that we bring to the table. Let's say someone builds the best fiber between 2 servers, right? So that means that every country in the world relies on us. I'm not saying that we should take it as an advantage of this, but we should say that is our defense. That's more realistic than trying to build everything.
All right. I hear you. All right. Another thing, should public incentives be tied to local procurement, technology transfer and domestic ownership? Because right now as we speak, India is offering land, power, and policy support to global companies without necessarily requiring anything in return on, on the technology ownership side?
See, at the end of the day, it's capitalism, right?
Hmm.
There are like 5 or 6 countries that want to attract hyperscalers to come and invest.
Hmm.
You need to offer the best to attract them.
Hmm.
What is the best? It's very difficult for us to determine that.
Hmm.
So I believe every government of every prime minister or every government would operate in the best interest of our country and have to make certain decisions to attract the investment.
Okay.
So, but that will change. If you look at historically, the governments would have given certain incentives which may not make sense at that point of time. But after 5 or 10 years, they will tweak. They will say that X percentage of your procurement has to come from India. Right? That has happened in the past. So I'm assuming that governments would evolve as things get more mature.
Right.
Let's say we today say that you have to procure 30% of your entire thing. But we also need to have suppliers.
Okay, fair. All right. Manoj, where do you stand on that?
I think I agree with Vishnu. It's opportunity for us that hyperscalers coming here. They are putting their own infrastructure. They are putting their heavy investment here. I think this is good for as a country. And when we ask for a control, we will have the 50-50, winning situations whenever we want a control. So these hyperscalers having high infrastructure already invested here. So this is one which is good for country. Another, Vishnu rightly said, if we want to procure from India, there should be availability. There should be such partners who have that ability to serve the ecosystem where we can get the devices, we can get the fiber, we can get the component which is very required to run this infrastructure.
Okay.
I think we are a little far from that specific situation now. But the way India is now building, taking control of things that we can have, soon we will have. So I'm looking this in a positive way. In a hope that soon we will have something which will not depend on any other country.
Amen to that then, Manoj.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Let's also talk about what India then actually stands to gain from this investment boom. Data center projects promise foreign investment. They promise construction activity, infrastructure development, and new technology clusters, right? Now, the numbers are impressive, yes, but permanent employment after construction is limited. Large modern facilities are highly automated. The real economic question is what sustainable local values get created. So, Manoj, how many permanent jobs does a hyperscale data center actually create after construction? If you could give us like a ballpark figure. And should governments evaluate these projects based on capital investment, or should it be evaluated based on long-term local economic value?
I think government looking for long term, because as I understand the data center infrastructure, it's heavily on the automation. I can't say like hundred thousands of people will get jobs if data center is coming here. No, it will be in just thousands of people will get jobs in these data centers. The reason is all these hyperscalers already having the automations from bringing their own hardware and then putting this in the racks. It's completely on automation. And then hardly we need 10 people to handle a specific floor in the data center.
Okay.
So I think not in the job perspective, but the kind of investment is coming, kind of infrastructure is coming. So world will now start looking in India. Like we already, as I said, we already started getting requirements.
All right, Manoj. And Vishnu, the question to you is this: do you think that India can build domestic industries around servers and cooling systems and power equipment and networking hardware? Because that's where the durable industrial value sits, I would say, not in running somebody else's infrastructure, but in building the components that sort of go into it.
So when I was building Jarvis Labs, whenever I get stuck across tough scenarios, so I used to remember that Elon Musk or SpaceX, that we are not building rockets, so this should be doable. Right now, India has its own answer. India has built its own rocket and sent it. Private company did that, a small team. So I think the question should not be anymore about whether we can do it or not. There is some company sitting in India which is already doing it. And I think we should trust our companies doing that. We will be doing it. The answer is.
All right.
We should be starting to dream bigger. We should not be thinking whether we'll get jobs or not.
Okay.
I don't think we should be dependent on foreign companies to give us jobs. We should have the know-how, and we should figure out how do we create these foreign brands.
Okay, absolutely. Manoj, what measurable benefits should communities actually receive for hosting nationally important infrastructure? Because the jobs will come is often said, but whether or not will it be delivered is something that we'll see later on. What should communities be demanding before they really approve these projects?
I believe control is most important these days. As Vishnu said, we should not rely on foreign companies to give us a job. I believe now time is for the AI, and in India, we are the largest economy. We're using digital infrastructure. So I believe our people will find something to do. I'm sure a lot of jobs will go due to the AI, but I believe a lot of jobs will get created after this AI ecosystem.
Okay.
I feel one important thing that India should have, which is the control on the entire stack. I'm not saying we will have the chips in sooner time, but yes, we will have. So with the supply chain, with the software stacks, like if you ask us how we are building it, we created the complete orchestration layer. We are not using any third-party orchestration layer or any licensing software in our organization, which actually enable us to give power to our customers to have the control with the confidence. So when we have the data center infrastructure here, complete software stack, no dependencies. Yes, one supply chain is the dependencies for the hardware or chips. And I believe sooner when we have that, it will be a game changer for the community, for the businesses of India.
All right, Manoj. All right. Thank you for that, Manoj. AI facilities require continuous electricity at a scale which is comparable to major industrial complexes. A single gigawatt scale data center consumes as much power as a medium-sized city. Rapid expansion now could create pressure on state grids and transmission infrastructure and electricity prices for everyone else. Vishnu, can India actually power gigawatt scale AI infrastructure without increasing its dependence on, say, coal? And who should pay for the grid upgrades that hyperscale facilities require in the first place?
There are two questions in place. Whether we can supply it.
Yes.
I think we should not rely on coal or any resources that is not infinite in nature. So we have to be more smarter in that. I hope government of India takes care of that. The second one is so what was the second question? I missed it, sorry.
Second question was, who should really pay for the grid upgrades that these hyperscale facilities require? Yeah.
So if you look at the electricity charges that we pay as consumers today, in most of the states in country, it's already at the lowest.
Right.
Industries usually pay the highest. As long as we offer reliable service, that should not be a problem. I don't think it should be taken from our pockets. But I think it's good to be cautious. Historically, government of India or the state governments have never done that. I hope that continues and we are not choking our domestic requirement for smaller industries or for consumers.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Vishnu. Manoj, should operators be required to create additional renewable energy capacity rather than just buying certificates? Because like Vishnu also pointed out, that there's a real difference between buying renewable energy credits and actually building clean power capacity. So which one is India's current policy framework requiring?
I believe we should move from only tick marks of the compliances where we have the green papers. But yeah, as I know, already like Adani already building large solar plants. So we have the immense capacity on the solar points. We have the huge land here to build that specific area. So I think green energy is something which is attracting other hyperscalers, which is coming in India. So I'm not sure if people will still go for just to have the tick mark on the compliance for the papers. I truly believe that government may be looking to that area. How exactly building these data centers? Are they just giving the tick marks or actually having the renewable energies?
All right. And Vishnu, could nuclear energy and small modular reactors become part of India's long-term data center power strategy? Because some of the most, I would say, serious conversations about data center power globally are now moving and pivoting in that direction.
See, I think we should explore all kinds of energy creations and more efficiency. So I think the entire thing boils down to efficiency, right? There is no issue with hyperscalers coming and creating data centers in India, but they should not be building them with zero respect for the nature and people living around. As long as they respect the country, and it's at the end of the earth, we all share the planet, right? We have to be cautious that we are not leaving our next generation something which is not livable. So we have to increase our efficiency in all the fronts: energy, water, and other resources. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if they will all be able to do it on day one. So we also have to be cautious about the fact, let's say we put stricter rules like 100% renewable energy or 100% nuclear, then the safety comes into picture. So we have to balance, and how do we achieve that over a period of time rather than insisting on day one.
Okay, all right. Vishnu, speaking of water, I believe that is the most politically charged part of this debate. The Google Adani project in Visakhapatnam is facing protests partly over water. Now, AI data centers use significant amount of water for cooling. Though newer technologies, like closed loop and air cooling can reduce this substantially, yes. The challenge is that companies often locate facilities in regions that are already water stressed. And of course, local communities have limited power to verify what companies actually consume versus what they promise. Manoj, my question in this case is to you here. Should data centers be permitted to use potable water or groundwater? And should companies be required to publicly disclose, projected and actual water consumption before these approvals are granted?
I believe transparency is the key to get the trust in the people.
Okay.
So I think the first stage should be they give the transparency what kind of water they were using and how much it will be the consumptions, and it is recyclable or not.
Okay.
But yes, I agree with the people who do protest. I think the fear is actually real. नहीं तो क्या होगा, हमारी जनरेशन हमें मारेगी एक टाइम के बाद. So it's very, very important. But yeah, I believe these data centers and government already will take care of the environment part. It should not, because the kind of investment they try to put in the India, it's not a small investment. So all the risk assessment, I believe, already get done by these hyperscalers or the data centers who are building for them.
But
so
Manoj,
we actually don't need to worry about it. Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, Manoj, that the local communities are very worried about it as we speak, right? Another part of my question was, should these companies be publicly disclosing the amount of water that they are going to be using or they are using before these approvals are granted? I mean, you did say that transparency.
I'm not aware about it, but I truly believe transparency is the key to gain the trust. So if they can do it, that will be helpful.
Okay.
If they can also add some point on that, okay, we are consuming this much of water, or let's say damage to the environment, but to regain the environment, this is what we are doing.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Manoj. Vishnu, who should receive priority when industrial demand, competes with households and agriculture? Because that's a question that, could might sound simple, but is actually a values question about, whose needs the state prioritizes here. So your take on that?
I think we should not separate
Hmm.
people from farmers from industries, right?
Okay.
These all are part of the nation.
Hmm.
So we have to work together,
Hmm.
right? For example, if there are no humans in a
Hmm.
city, what is the role of that industry?
Okay.
There's
Okay.
no role, right?
Hmm.
So if farmers are not able to produce food, what will people do? If people are not ready to pay to the farmers, what they will do? So
Hmm.
I think it's an efficiency problem. We should be looking at how do we solve a problem
Hmm.
rather than saying when something goes wrong, who should be penalized first?
Hmm.
It's
It's
all a
also,
cyclic
yeah.
reaction.
It's also a matter of question. People have been questioning this for quite a while now. It's like an ongoing debate, right? Whose priority takes a backseat? So while what you're saying that
So
it's an entire nation that needs to come together and really function as a
sure,
team here. That I believe
sure.
essentially is what you're saying. But I think that's an ideal
So
situation.
there are something called basic necessities, right?
Hmm.
Food, air to breathe, a
Hmm.
good place to live. These are
Hmm.
basic necessities.
Hmm.
In
Roti
any
kapda
scenario,
makan.
these will be the highest priority.
Hmm.
Let's say a factory is producing TikTok
Hmm.
videos
Hmm.
or Instagram reels.
Hmm.
Definitely that's not the priority.
Hmm.
But let's say a data center is producing insights for our defense.
Hmm.
That's a priority,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
we have to be cautious about what
Okay.
we cannot generalize these things at a very high level.
All right, Vishnu. Also, Vishnu and Manoj, can air cooling and immersion cooling realistically make hyperscale infrastructure viable? In water stressed regions like Andhra Pradesh, and also who verifies that the technology companies promise are actually what gets implemented? Because there's often a gap between the environmental commitment in the proposal and what actually gets built.
I think Vishnu can add something to this.
Actually, both of you can, but sure,
So
Vishnu, if you want to
yeah,
go
yeah.
first, and
So
Manoj can add later.
let's not just target data centers,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Saving water, saving energy is a national priority, not just a national, global priority.
Hmm.
We all should be transparent. Can every society show how
Hmm.
much water is being used in a day
Okay.
or in a month, average?
Hmm.
And can we do a mathematical scenario modeling, say that, hey, we are taking this much of groundwater every day. How long is it sustainable? So we were asking a question, can data centers take groundwater? The
Hmm.
question is, let's assume that if they take groundwater, is it sustainable? What are the after impacts?
Hmm.
My assumption is taking groundwater, even for personal use or for data center use, is not sustainable.
Hmm.
Farming. So the easier option is to say that farmers need water. But
Hmm.
the different question is, how does Israel do farming way more efficiently than our country?
Hmm. Hmm.
So fighting politics is a way probably not to solve the problem.
Hmm.
If engineers are put into the place, ideas to really solve the problem, I think we can solve it.
All right. Manoj, you want to add your perspective to this?
I think I'm agree to Vishnu's point. That's why I refer Vishnu. The kind of way he speak on the water, like how everyone utilizing it, are we as a society actually disclosing it? How we are consuming it, how much amount we are consuming it. So I think the same rules should apply on the societies and us. We are consuming day by day. This data center infrastructure is actually very important for our future,
Hmm.
for the technology. Like we said, uh, we don't have control on hyperscalers. Now it's time to have that control, to have that infrastructure in India, where everyone will start looking inside the India to host their own infrastructure. So when something is coming, we should not stopping it. Absolutely, if we are too careful, we should be utilizing in our personal life as well. Careful of the water, of the pollution, the way like we have the traffic these days.
Okay.
So we also have we can debate on this, but I think Vishnu rightly said, if something is coming here, data we should not question only one specific industry on this.
No, I do agree with that point of Vishnu's, that I think efficiency comes into question here, whether or not it's sustainable. Because at the end of the day, everybody needs water, everybody wants water, everybody is using water at the end of the day. But the worry is that it comes down to whataboutery. That we are also using water, you are also using water, how much water are you using? So before it gets to that, I think policymakers should sit on what Vishnu very correctly pointed out, whether or not it's sustainable, how much ever water you are using, how much whatever water I'm using, whether or not I'm able to justify it, whether or not it's sustainable, whether or not it's harming the environment in any way whatsoever. Yeah, Vishnu, you wanted to add something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think the tone that which we end up taking as a society for the last few years is more of a threatening tone, or that comes probably out of fear. So what I'm looking at is, can it be a collaborative nature where we trust people, we say, hey, this is what is acceptable for us, sustainable for us.
Yeah.
Can we reach that? How can we reach that? How can we help you to do that? That's more, so at the end of the day, industrialists come because of a promise, right? We're all trying to make a better world. So let's not suspect them, but let's not trust them also 100%. I think both are extremes. Let's be transparent. Hey, what you're doing is not fair. How do we achieve this? How do we make it sustainable? So as a country, as a world, can we be a good example? Can India set a good example how to run data centers efficiently without hurting the nature? Rather than saying no for DCs or no for anything else.
Yeah.
Unless until we are doing something illegal, not moral things, I think we should not stop things.
All right, fair. Thank you for that, Manoj and Vishnu. I want to now pivot to the Vijay Shekhar Sharma question here. He warned that India must not become a victim of anti-AI. He called it anti-AI and anti-data center protests, similar to those emerging in the West. That framing, opposition as anti-technology is, I think, worth examining carefully here. Now, there is a real argument that if India delays while other countries accelerate, it loses its window. Now, there is also a real argument that, characterizing environmental scrutiny as anti-development is a way of silencing legitimate concerns from, communities who have the most to lose here. Vishnu, is it fair to characterize environmental opposition to, data centers as anti-AI or anti-development? And also, can legitimate scrutiny actually coexist with faster approvals for infrastructure that India genuinely needs right now?
So we are a democratic country. So I think just like Vijay Shekhar has a right to say his point, everyone has the right to make their point. I think we should start to learn to make points based on data. So it's very easy to say that data centers take a lot of water. But what is lot? Does it take as much as a paddy field, 100-acre paddy field? Or less than that? Or does it take more than a society with 1,000 people, or less than that?
Does it change the answer?
That puts things into perspective. That puts into perspective.
Okay.
Exactly. So let's take a paddy field in India. It uses certain techniques to generate paddy. Let's look at Israel. What is the input of water that goes to generate the same healthy calorie? Are we abusing the water here? Right? You don't know what to say, right?
That argument, Vishnu, would also go for jeans, no?
Everything. Absolutely.
I mean, everybody is wearing jeans. You are wearing jeans, I am wearing jeans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. So the question is, without the data, we don't know where we stand.
Okay.
Both of the parties, right? One person is saying consumes a lot of water, but we don't. At least I don't know personally what is a lot of water means. Can we have a relative scale, a scientific number to it, so that we can make a valid judgment? The same way, when you say anti-AI, what does it mean? So I am a heavy AI user, and I tell my kid and my parents and my friends to be cautious about AI because people assume that they're talking to a human. They think they can trust it. Anyone who has done modeling would realize that it's just random prediction. So there's no way you can trust. So I think both the arguments are very important in a democratic country so that we make the right call.
Right. Because the question was, Vishnu, then, because by that logic, and I agree with you again, by that logic, I wouldn't believe that it would be fair to characterize environmental opposition as anti-AI either. Like
I
you
agree.
very correctly
It's not
pointed
fair.
out, I think we need numbers here. Before, we
Yeah,
bring out our knives and swords, we need
exactly.
numbers.
All the arguments should be based on facts, and we should not say someone is anti-AI or something else. That does
All right.
not
Thank you. Yeah.
help with any conversation.
All right. And also, Manoj, this question is for you. Would transparent impact assessments and community consultations actually reduce public resistance? Do you think that would happen, or does the opposition run deeper than process? Because sometimes the opposition is specifically about the process itself, the lack of consultation and the lack of information, and sometimes it's also about the outcome regardless of the process. So your perspective on that?
Absolutely. So transparency will always help. This is what I truly believe, what I live with. So when these hyperscalers will give this transparency, actually give a answer to these people who actually protesting this. But we should understand one thing. This is a right time where people coming from outside India want to build something here. This is your opportunity. So if someone is not want to allow it, they should have to understand what exactly the bad thing will happen after 10 years. Our new generation will say there was a big opportunity. The complete world was looking in India, want to build something in India. Why you guys stand up and say, don't put your infrastructure here because it will be harmful for our environment, right? We will not have that specific control. So think about the future, not the today. We heard this multiple times that in specific city, shortage of the water. I'm not sure how we are able to live till the time now if we are shortage of the water. I believe we can arrange things, we can do something for the environment to make sure we will have the water, we will have the good environment around us to live as a human. But I think we should not stop this opportunity, which is already building here.
Okay.
So if you look at other countries, hardly there is a other 4-5 countries where these hyperscalers want to build their infrastructure. They are looking India. The reason is we already have the policies for everything: land, power, telecom sectors, and the fourth, the compute, which is most crucial, I would say, asset for the future, for the AI infrastructure.
All right.
So we should let them do it. This is about our future, not the current state.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Manoj. Let's also talk about where these facilities should, actually be built, because India's current capacity, I believe, is concentrated around major cities, right? Like Mumbai and Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Chennai. Future growth is moving towards new regions with, cheaper land and access to power, but also poor site selection could transfer environmental pressure to smaller and more vulnerable communities with even less capacity to push back. Manoj, should India prevent new hyperscale facilities in severely water-stressed cities? And also, should the government create national site selection standards, based on the availability of water and power and connectivity and ultimately the climate risk involved?
I think we are still on the same question. We are just circling back, I believe.
Yes.
So India should allow the hyperscalers for sure. But yes, if there is any way to optimize based on the location, based on the geography, so government should take care of that, analyze that, and if they can recommend. But I truly believe when such a kind of investment being done by any hyperscalers, as I said, they must be already done all the assessments for the money they want to put there.
Okay.
Any risk assessment. That's why, and when someone building the data center, they always look at the location about is it safe for earthquake? Is it safe for any land wars? Right? So India, I believe, is a country which is safe. Let's say if data center going in nearby Bangalore, Hyderabad or Chennai or Mumbai. So that's why if you're looking all the data center geography, no new data center announcement. So these are the locations.
Okay, but and I'll tell you why I'm circling back to this question
Sure.
again, Manoj. The question is, would you say that tier 2 and tier 3 locations support data centers without, overwhelming local infrastructure? Do you think that is possible with the pace that we are currently on?
I think yes,
Okay.
can be. I think there will be a new opportunity when any data center build in any zone. So there will be new internet lease lines will go, exchanges will build. So when we talk about the employment, so the new employment also will get created in that specific area.
In fact, I want to build on this, and this question is for Vishnu here. Vishnu, you built Jarvis Labs out of Coimbatore, right? It's a tier 2 city, if I'm not wrong. What did that actually take, and what does it tell you about whether serious infrastructure can be built outside the metros?
So when we started, we had to set up a small server room in the same office that we live in, because there were no data centers that were ready to host a GPU server. The first server that we bought was taking around 4 kilowatts of power capacity. There were 2 data centers that were ready to, but the cost was too high, not affordable for us. So when we tried to get the power guys were very suspicious. What are we trying to do? It's very new. The internet guys were suspicious. What are we trying to do? And the reliability on the internet at our scale was very poor.
Okay.
So, but that will not be true for when a hyperscaler puts in. Let's say, for example, there was a hyperscaler that existed in outskirts of Coimbatore, similar to where we are. Getting power would have been slightly easier. Getting internet would have not been a problem.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
There's another thing that I observed.
Yes.
We have been talking so much about water. So I had an opportunity to spend in data center for last 4-5 years, a tier 3 data center. That's where we co-located for a very long period of time. I was just wondering where and all water will be consumed. Only for GPU infrastructure, for liquid cooling is where there is a heavy water usage, or for the data center cooling. If my understanding is right, it's mostly reusable water. It's not like the fresh water gets pumped in all the time. So, and it's all electrical. So I'm not sure where do we have this excess water usage coming into the data center. Again, I'm not an expert at it. It is based on my observations. This is what I think.
All right. Thank you for that, Vishnu. And steering the conversation slightly here also, because in the interest of time, one question that I do have is this. Would you say that the semiconductor mission and the data center expansion reinforces each other? Could it reinforce each other? Because those are two very large government programs happening parallelly, happening simultaneously, right? And if they connect well, right, the whole is greater than the sum here. And if they don't, you also get two expensive parallel efforts that don't talk to each other. So which is which here?
I think they will work together at some point of time. But again, for any R&D projects, putting a definitive timeline is harder. For example, let's say we have to buy storage. I think one option today we have, if you want to buy it inside India, is Micron. But that's also a foreign company. Let's say our semiconductor thing kicks on and goes to the next level, where we build some of the best storage devices and memory devices. Then it is obvious for any company to buy them. But when will that happen? That's a very tough question to answer. But I think that will happen in the next probably 5-6 years.
All right. Thank you for that. Manoj and Vishnu, I do have one last question before I let you go. And of course, it's the same question for the both of you. India clearly needs more computing infrastructure to participate in the global AI economy. But having said that, should success be measured by how many megawatts India installed, or how much foreign capital attracts, or how much of the underlying technology or economic value and strategic capability India ultimately controls? So I just want a brief answer from the two of you on this.
Absolutely. I believe why we measure everything with the power is the size of infrastructure. It's the size of how much power our compute actually consuming. So that is the reason we are measuring it. I believe the kind of infrastructure we have currently, almost 1500 to 2000 megawatt. So when we increase it 7 to 8 times or 10 times in next 3-4 years, I believe we will be the one of the power in the world who have the massive infrastructure which can empower the AI infrastructure.
All right.
So I'll probably take the answer slightly differently. Let's say we are exporting steel. Do we want to be the biggest exporter of steel? The problem with that is, after a point, you may not have enough steel to export. Right? The same way, if we just talk about how many gigawatts will I have data centers, we are not really looking at what is the IP being created, what is the value that is being created. It is very essential that we look at India on how many Fortune 500s are being born and operate from India. I would be more interested in that than the raw compute or raw electricity that is going through India.
All right.
That will also help us increase the per capita income of an individual.
Right. All right. Manoj and Vishnu, thank you so much. This has been a very, very interesting conversation. Some contrasting opinions here and there as well, but very, very invigorating one. So thank you for that. And for everybody, ladies and gentlemen who has tuned in and watching this segment right now, I would leave them with this. The data center boom is real. The investment is real, the strategic necessity is real. But at the same time, I believe physical location is not the same as sovereignty. And a gigawatt of compute owned by a foreign hyperscaler, powered by coal, cooled by water drawn from an aquifer in a region that wasn't consulted, is probably not the infrastructure story that India wants to tell about its AI future. Having said that, this conversation has been eye-opening in many, many ways. We are, like Manoj and Vishnu would point out, that on the right path, I would say. We have had an optimistic start. So aim into that again, hoping that we'd be on that path, hoping that we'd be able to give answers that we are proud of. And of course, the question is not whether India builds, it's what India builds and who controls it and who pays the cost. So everybody who has tuned in right now, thank you so much. I'm Antara. This is Point Break. I'll see you again next episode.